Okay, we finally get to City on the Edge of Forever. We'll talk about it in a second. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and today City on the Edge of Forever is the award-winning, well, let's not say that the program itself won the award. Actually, what happened was Harlan Ellison's original script, before it was rewritten by 4 or 5 different people, was the winner of a Hugo Award. And according to his own book, which he wrote about his experience writing the show, dealing with Star Trek, and a complete original script, along with the first revision that he made. And in the epilogue of the book, various people who also had a hand in rewriting for the finished show. Dorothy Fontana, D.C. Fontana, wrote that if that had been an episode of The Twilight Zone, it never would have been rewritten. And in fact, it might not have been rewritten for Star Trek either, except that Roddenberry, at the very beginning, upon reading it, said that it wasn't Star Trek-y enough. And frankly, if you've ever read the original version of it, it could well have made a very good Star Trek type of adventure. I think the only thing that they really had a problem with was they introduced a new character that you really couldn't identify with that originally went down and changed history. And in Harlan Ellison's first revision of the original script, he did put McCoy in as the main character that moved the action on all of this. But all that said, it is one of the best, if not the best, original series episode there is, as most critics would say. We found a few interesting things about it. They talked about ruins extending to the horizon. Interestingly, that was a miscommunication. The regular art director for the series was sick or something like that. One of the assistants took over and looked at rune stones, which was in the original script as what was causing the madness that caused McCoy to beam down to the planet to begin with, and misconstrued that as being ruins when they were supposed to be kind of a sparkling city with this time guardian there. And in making it into what they said in the book looked like an oblong donut, was out of nothing that was actually written about it. Kind of interesting there. The dated part of it is they bring Uhura down. It should have been Janice Rand, but she was already off the show by the time this was filmed, so they replaced her part with Uhura, who said, "I'm frightened, Captain." That seemed to be her only real line of any significance, and unfortunately, it's not something that a senior officer would say. It's one of those kind of things where, 60s women always had to be the people that were in trouble. When Kirk and Spock do arrive in what should be 1930 New York, it is on the Mayberry set. And in fact, when he and Joan Collins are passing by shops along the street, one of them says Floyd's Barber Shop, which was a location on the Andy Griffith Show. So that actual backlot set had been used as downtown Atlanta and Gone with the Wind. Of course, the Andy Griffith Show. It was used for the George Reeves Superman. The alley in which they steal the clothes was where Superman used to fly away from. They've used that particular set again in Miri, where they had a different point of view on it, and most of those buildings were one story, and it was usually matte shots that would create the rest of the buildings, so you could make them look different. You make it look like a big city or a small town any way you wanted. So that was that little detail there. Then another one of my pet peeves, when anytime they show the love interest, they put it in soft focus. And in fact, when Kirk looked at her and when McCoy looked at her, she was in soft focus. Now, it seems to be only from their point of view, because when they showed her in other scenes, not being gazed upon, she was in as sharp a focus as everybody else. But I find this kind of interesting that they tend to want to do this. And Joan Collins was and many of the women that they used on Star Trek were quite attractive and didn't need a soft focus lens to look any better. So that's kind of interesting how they tended to do that just out of convention, I suppose. In her talk, and this was in the original script, where Edith Keeler believed that by going to space it would cure all diseases and eliminate all financial wants. That's something that was probably more of the 1960s than anything else, that everything we thought would be the solution to our problems was getting into space. And as it actually turned out, we lost interest. Sometime after this show went off the air, interestingly, we did our last mission to the moon and kind of gave up on it after that. So the whole idea that space flight was a solution for all of our problems was something that was actually in the 60s a little closer to what people thought than what we do now. A couple of McCoy lines. Forrest Kelly said also in Harlan Ellison's book that this was absolutely his favorite episode, and it's probably because he had more to do in it. He was the person that pushed forward most of the plot, and even though he only appeared in the last 5 or 6 minutes, really, of the show and the first couple of minutes before the open, that was a way of showcasing his acting talents, of him being out of his mind, and of his slow but steady recovery. During that recovery, he had a couple of good lines. I'm a surgeon, not a psychiatrist. When Edith Keeler doubted his story of who he was, he said, "That's all right. I don't believe in you either." I thought that was a good line on there. So much has been written about City on the Edge of Forever. I do recommend Harlan Ellison's book of that title. It gives his whole argument as to why they shouldn't have messed with what he wrote. Now, Dorothy Fontana said that generally he had a volatile temper. Nobody wanted to tell him that what he had written down was not perfect. Nothing could grow again in a 3-mile area around his ire when he lost his temper. But anyway, it's a worthy book to read, City on the Edge of Forever by Harlan Ellison, with some afterwards by DeForest Kelley, by D.C. Fontana, by David Jarrell, and others that talk about the show and how good the original script was, but the fact that sometimes you get rewritten for television. And perhaps it gives a Gene Roddenberry in a bad light, not only by Ellison, but by other people as well, that perhaps his desire to rewrite this was more because he wanted to make sure his hand was on it and not give full credit to Ellison. So, I'd like to know what you think about this. Please put it in the comments, and please subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and like us as well. Thumbs up there would be very helpful to us. And until next time, don't go far.